Do you hear that, Cam?
What is that?
That's the sounds of nature.
It is. There are bugs.
There are bugs.
I mean, we're safe. We're on the porch right now.
A screened porch.
Yes, which is actually nice. There are little rocking chairs. We are at the inn that is attached to the Chainsaw House.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre House.
Which is a restaurant now. And,
yes.
yeah.
If you've been listening to us for a while, we've been there twice before.
It's one of our favorite places.
It is.
So we came to the inn to celebrate.
To stay.
Yeah.
Overnight.
So we got here yesterday. We checked in. Mm-hmm. And then we went and had dinner in the Chainsaw House restaurant.
Yes.
And,
in the room where they have the dinner scene.
Yeah.
I checked because we watched the movie last night.
Right.
And it is, in fact, the same room.
And Maggie can now say that she has eaten mashed potatoes in the Chainsaw House.
I have.
And I had a nice little burger and fries.
It was very fun.
Appetizers were fun. It was a cute place. The people were wonderful.
Our waiter was wearing a chainsaw t-shirt, which was great.
So then we came back to our little cabin.
Yeah, so there's this old inn that's attached. Like, it's the inn owns the house now, but there's like an inn, and then there are little cabins. So we're staying in one of the cabins, and it's the cabin that's like the farthest away from everything.
It's the smallest little standalone cabin on the edge of the property near the woods.
We pulled up to it and we were like, oh my god.
Well, this was a mistake.
We'll post pictures.
But inside, it was the cutest, cleanest, most wonderful little place. So we set up on the big old funky green couch and pulled the laptop as close as we could and blasted the movie. This is only the second time we've ever seen it.
Yeah, because we saw it once a few years ago. And yeah, it holds up.
Yeah, and watching it on location at night with creaky noises, and there were creaks and cracks and groans from the wood because it was a cold night last night.
This house made so many noises. And I knew that when we got here. I was like, okay, it's an old building. Old buildings make noise.
But it was light out when we got here.
Right. And it was like, oh, how cute, how fun. And then it got dark and I was like, oh no.
The ambiance, once the movie ended, and I was, feverishly writing up my notes while we were watching it. The ambiance afterwards, I had not anticipated.
Yeah, I know. Because, you had been kind of, a little bit uneasy when we got here.
Sure.
And I was like, it's fine. It's fun. People stay here all the time. And then it got dark and we both kind of freaked ourselves out. Especially because Cam brought his clothes in, a plastic grocery bag. I guess to put your dirty clothes in at the end. You left it, on the couch in the bedroom. And the fan was on. And it, flew off. And made a big loud noise at 4 in the morning, and it freaked me out.
And every tiny crack of a plank of wood in the middle of the night is oh, Leatherface is here.
Oh, good, great. But honestly, it was really fun. This cabin was very charming. We'll post pictures. The outside is hilarious.
We survived.
But the inside is very cute.
Yep, we just woke up. We went and took a little walk. There's a lake and a nice little pier.
It's a coffee place.
And now we're going to go have breakfast inside the Chainsaw House.
It's going to be good.
And then we're going to go home and record the rest of the episode for you guys. So we just want to say hi. This was going to be our last will and testament. But instead, it's a 5-star review.
Absolutely. If you are in Central Texas and you want to stay at the Antlers Inn, you should, because it's been delightful. A lovely experience. It really has.
And for those at home, the Texas Chainsaw House restaurant is called the Grand Central Cafe.
Yes, in Kingsland, Texas. So check it out if you can. It's really very fun. All right. Well,
all right.
See you
now
later.
On to the rest of the episode with a seamless transition that I have to do later.
Okay, good.
All right.
So, Cam, now that you've had some distance between our trip and being back at home,
yes,
how would you rate your experience at the Antlers Inn, which is attached to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house in Kingsland, Texas?
It was a delight. I would say none of the terror was the fault of the inn.
No,
I liked
none at
the
all.
inn. The people were great. It was very cute and charming. But at 3 in the morning, not sleeping, creaking my neck, there were... And it wasn't even the pillows. That was just me.
Yep.
There were moments of regret.
There were just a couple. But I don't know if we mentioned this in our intro.
Yeah.
We did have a stellar security system that we set up ourselves. So we're staying in this cabin, right? And outside there's a huge pile of bricks, big solid bricks.
Like a pallet of bricks.
So we, naturally grabbed a brick and put it on the inside of the front door. So it was the house brick. So if anybody tried to come in through, the one of 3 or 4 doors that were in the house, we would hear them.
I mean, last time when you heard us in the intro, we were on the little porch there.
Yeah.
It's very different talking about it being here.
Yeah.
So yes, we had the house brick to defend the homestead.
We also brought the fire extinguisher into the bedroom.
Right. We thought we could spray foam at Leatherface that would distract him or blind
hit him with it.
But the problem was, as safe as I felt on the edge of the property in the middle of nowhere in the woods, the bedroom had 3 massive windows and 2 doors to the outside.
Literally 2 doors. One of them led to the porch.
Right.
So that was cool. Like, so the front. And the other led to the back.
Right.
So it was just, there were entrances from all sides.
There were opportunities.
Yes. They could come in through the haunted wardrobe. They could have come in through the grates in the floor. That was the worst part for me.
Yeah.
So there was a big rug in the living room. And I was like, I'm just not going to lift this rug up because there could be a creepy cellar door in here.
Evil Dead.
Exactly. Because there were vents in the floor for the, the HVAC system. And I was like, what if there's a crawl space situation? I can't handle that. So I just didn't even lift up. That's how I handle any scary situation, is I just try to pretend it's not there, which is probably not very smart.
Well, that'll never lead you astray.
Never. Anyway, so yeah, we're talking about, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre today.
Chainsaw being 2 words, of course.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. We've talked about this movie before, on and off, constantly, because it's,
Since we saw it the first time, we've mentioned it regularly.
But we've never had a dedicated episode to this movie. So that's what we're doing today.
We've talked about this before. The more we like a work of art, the harder it is to talk about.
Yeah.
And that's not, if something comes out and we just see it in a theater, it's pretty easy to talk about it, even if we're really excited, like the Terrifier episode.
Right. But an all-timer that I've loved for years, that's why we've never had an episode about The Witch.
Right.
Because I don't even know where I would begin. Mm-hmm. I mean, although we did one about Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah.
So, and I dove real deep, and that is my favorite movie of all time. So.
And Goodfellas.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so we could do it.
There are some, I think you got to build up to them, and this is one of those episodes.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those toughies. So this is the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I was taking notes while we were watching it. It's only the second time I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've got some fun topics for us to play with. So the first one, we'll start with a touch of Shakespeare that I noticed at the beginning. Well, the old man trope that we've discussed.
Yeah.
Did you catch that? There's this
I did when you said old man to me while watching it.
There's this drunk sheriff at the beginning who has some ominous little one-liners, and he's kind of splayed out on the ground.
Yeah.
And that achieves that old man trope that you can find in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar with the Ides of March and Faustus and 100 other things. But also the name of the dad of the bad family, Leatherface being one of the sons, and then you've got the hitchhiker, you've got grandpa, and then in the middle you've got the dad, the guy with the cool teeth from the gas station, who's sort of the ringleader. In the cast list, he's called Old Man.
Oh, very cool.
And he's
That's
kind of the
awesome.
first one they interact with, that they don't know is crazy.
Yes, right.
So
Because the hitchhiker is obviously not to be trusted, but this guy at the gas station.
And that's another version of that ominous prophetic version of the old man trope. So
Cool.
I thought that was fun. I wasn't expecting that in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, even the beginning of the movie, that the text on the screen that says this, is true events, blah, blah, blah. That feels like the chorus in a Shakespeare play, sort of framing the story you're about to see and giving you a bit of this overall bird's eye view narration about the story that's about to unfold.
Yeah, and for all the I feel like just disrespect this movie gets, it is one of the smartest, fastest, bluntest, scariest horror movies ever made.
Yeah.
It's in the top 3 probably for me.
It's truly upsetting.
But it doesn't have the sensibility of a lot of the more respected horror. I was shocked on this rewatch how not bitter or cynical this movie felt.
Yeah.
The whole reason that these, random teenagers stop for the hitchhiker is empathy.
Yeah.
Just because it's hot out.
Yeah.
And Franklin, the brother, he is so persistently smart and attentive through the whole movie.
Yeah.
Instead of having people talk about this movie like it's a dumb, stereotypical
slasher,
silly slasher.
Yeah.
But Franklin instantly, when the hitchhiker wipes all of his blood all over the van, Franklin catches that as a possible tag, as a way of the guy trying to mark them so he could find them later.
He's thinking very strategically.
And half a dozen times he wonders out loud through the rest of the movie if that is a way for them to be found and hunted.
Yeah, if they're being followed. Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's that intelligent, because Sally's the final girl, but Franklin is kind of the main character for a lot of this.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
His intelligence, I think, is what makes the movie scary for me.
Yeah, because it's not like a bunch of dumb teenagers. Like even the other ones, like none of them are particularly dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're having a good time, and they're not necessarily like bad people. Like it's not. You think of like Friday the 13th, like that's your quintessential slasher. Like Halloween starts it, or Black Christmas, you could argue, but Friday the 13th is like a bunch of dumb teenagers all having sex in the woods.
Right.
They're so oblivious. They open the scary closet and that's where the killer is hiding. Like that is what people think this movie is, or they misremember this movie as that. And it's not at all. It's these people who are young and maybe a bit naive, but they're normal.
Right.
Exactly. They're not completely idiotic.
Right. And it's that simplicity that is often misinterpreted. But it's the simplicity of this movie that makes it so good, because it's brutal. Mm-hmm. And even that goes even to the way you analyze it and view it and think about the movie. The echoes that you find are strong and blunt and simple. Mm-hmm. The photos that you see at the start of the movie that show all the horrifying stuff that this family's doing to graveyards.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Those like loud snapshots where you hear the whine of the camera over and over again.
It's so cool.
I didn't even catch it, but I should have, because there are so few moving parts in every scene and everything is so overt. But you're so interested in those parts, you don't catch the like obvious references. The hitchhiker jumps into their car with a camera.
Yeah. So he was probably just at one of the graveyards.
And maybe, I assumed those were crime scene photos.
Yeah.
But maybe that was him like just
taking pictures.
Yeah. Documenting his handiwork.
Wow. Yeah.
And I didn't even catch that. But like on paper, it should be so, like if you were writing out that script, it would almost seem too obvious.
Yeah.
But there's so much going on in the, like all of the film's few parts are so strong that you're just fascinated and engrossed.
Yeah.
And I think the camera work has some of that simplicity too, because everything is simultaneously too close and too far away.
Yeah.
And it builds this sense of like unease where I was trying to figure out sort of the patterns. And I think it's that the proximity changes, like how close our heroes or teenagers are to us. That changes based on the proximity of the family.
Oh, okay.
So when the hitchhiker is in the back of the van with them, when Sally's at the dinner table, when they one by one enter Leatherface's house, the camera's really close up.
Because they're close to this deranged family.
Right. So the camera is like immersed in their minds, their worlds, their fear. Look at Sally and the close-ups on the eyeball at the dinner scene. The camera's on top of them. But then when it's far off and you see these long, boiling hot, miserable Texas vistas, and this was filmed in the middle of a heat wave.
Yes.
You're watching them and they're all alone. You realize how stranded and out of their depth there are.
Yeah.
And the way the camera starts to like shake and kind of wiggle through that environment, it feels like it's coming from the perspective of the family. Like you're watching these kids from a distance, like hunters watching deer.
Sure, yeah.
So it feels like you're stalking them.
Yeah, so they're either being watched from a distance or we're so up close that they can't see around. Like we can't see in the peripheral, and so we're vulnerable in that way.
And the balance of those two perspectives is so restless that when Leatherface jumps out of nowhere with the chainsaw or whatever happens, it feels like that hunter running in for the kill.
Yeah.
Closing that distance, and it almost makes you pull back in your seat. But I loved that yo-yoing of distance. It didn't feel annoying. It didn't feel almost like a spoiler based on how the shot was composed. I was just ready for it. Every time. It almost felt like Mad Max Fury Road. Where like there's a very there's one really strong shot composition. Everything's right in the middle of the frame.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it boring. That just makes you more immersed in what's happening.
Yeah, right. Like even the shot, one of my favorite shots in the whole movie is when Pam, the other girl, not the final girl,
Sally.
Yeah, when Pam is walking into the house after her boyfriend has been attacked, and she doesn't know. She's like, he's not coming out. So she walks into the house, and it's like from behind and below her, basically. So you're just watching her back Like she's wearing this halter top, so her back is totally open, which of course foreshadows the meat hook death she faces. Actually, she doesn't die there, but anyway.
And her shorts are such like a bright red.
Bright red.
It's a very iconic shot.
So it's like you're following her in this like what on the surface appears to be this like male gaze version of like watching this woman walk into the house because you're seeing her in this very sexualized way. But it also feels incredibly ominous because no one would be looking at her from that angle, and anybody who is being a creep. And it's like following her, like you can tell it's on some sort of wheeled assembly because it's like following her very smoothly, and like the way she's walking, it just feels so ominous. And of course we know something bad's about to happen because we just saw her boyfriend get taken out, so we know, but she doesn't. And it doesn't spoil it, like, because you know it's going to be bad, but like you're just watching her be pulled in like she probably is used to existing in the world of like being seen in this maybe objectifying way by men. And, you know, she's young and maybe she's, you know, she's flaunting what she has and all this stuff. She's used to that frivolous way of existing in the world.
That's how she and her boyfriend are in the movie.
Yeah, and has no idea that it's about to be so much darker than that. I love that shot. I think it's so cool every time.
And jumping around in my notes a little, there's a slight kind of visual echo in the language of the film, because Leatherface is almost always shot from below.
Oh, yeah, because he's so tall and looming.
Which makes him look gigantic. Maybe this is sort of a fun point. I want to talk about Leatherface by way of comparison with another character we've discussed as long as we've talked about horror on this show, and that's Michael Myers. So Leatherface is shot from below. He looks gigantic. He moves heavily. He's a big dude.
Yeah, he's not quiet like Michael Myers is.
But he's also incredibly fast. And I think that's what really sets him apart from his horror icon peers like Michael Myers, who is much more methodical. He feels inevitable, patient, unfeeling. He walks slowly and carries a big knife. Leatherface, by contrast, is all flair.
Yes.
Multiple costume changes. Swinging the weapon around, yelling.
It's a loud weapon.
Groaning, moaning. He's messy.
Yeah, he doesn't talk, but he's making noise. He's not silent the way that Michael is.
And there are direct moments of contrast. Michael Myers pins a guy to a door like a javelin. Leatherface cuts up a door with the chainsaw like an avant-garde artist.
Yeah,
Like, it's completely different approaches.
Yes.
But like Michael Myers, Leatherface's backstory is not explained. There's maybe even less explanation here than there is in Halloween.
Yes.
Because Halloween sequels become this, like, lore pretzel.
I was going to say, there's this grim determination to solve the backstory of Michael. Yeah.
And every word of explanation you give ruins. I think it dampens that character.
Yeah.
Leatherface is infinitely creepy and mysterious and larger than life, because they leave that room for myth.
Yeah, and like the Halloween sequels, a lot of sequels and remakes of Texas Chainsaw try to justify and clarify and explain his backstory too.
Especially with a familial connection. One of the reboots does that, makes him a cousin of one of the final girls. But just like that Michael Myers magic.
Sorry, I'm just remembering. Do your thing, cuz.
Yeah, she tosses him the chain. It's brutal.
It is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I love it.
Oh, no, it's incredibly fun to watch.
Which one is that?
I think that's the most recent reboot. 2013, I think.
Okay. Not the one that just came out last year, which we did an episode on.
That was fun too.
That one was
good.
We
did do an episode on that.
Yeah, but anyway, sorry.
But just as the Michael Myers magic is sort of undone by the sister connection, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre family would be broken by like a domestic drama prequel about how it all went wrong.
Yes.
That wouldn't interest me at all.
No, and they've made that. I think it's called Texas Chainsaw The Beginning or something like that.
That one... Yeah, that one's the prequel to the reboot.
Got it. Okay. But
we watched it. I think that was the one with Matt Bomer.
Maybe you're right. The point is that they don't work, right?
The timeline gets really twisty for this franchise.
It's much better when there's a mystery and it's unexplained, because that's the scariest part, is that it's not explained.
And it means there's something to talk about because it's not all explained. Because this time I develop weird theories. That's my function on this show.
Never heard you do that.
the family's craziness felt infectious this time, like a virus, like an infection. So after he's cut by the hitchhiker, Franklin starts doing this like spitting raspberries thing, where he's like He's doing that at the rest of them, almost
Yeah.
obsessively.
Yeah.
And that's something that the hitchhiker's doing in the car. Franklin becomes more quick to anger. He becomes more scattered, like the hitchhiker.
So he's like infected with whatever family virus.
Right. Or he's
Cool.
adopting those sensibilities, like Walter White starting to kneel down on the towels like Gus Fring after that.
Yeah.
And similarly, Sally in the dinner scene, I think she's sort of driven crazy
Oh, yeah.
to the point of craziness that the rest of the family is at.
Yeah.
And that final shot of her like fleeing in the truck, I think she's just as deranged in that moment as Leatherface is swing dancing with the chainsaw. They're both gone.
Yeah.
There's not like a humanity left there.
Right.
And it almost renews the cycle. Like it goes back to the beginning and just does a little musical chairs with who's who.
Yeah.
Because the last shot of the movie of Sally escaping Leatherface is her becoming a crazed hitchhiker.
Yeah.
So it's that
Interesting.
infection spreading. It's the cycle starting anew. But it's not so on the nose that it feels like kind of a tropey cop-out like every other cyclical ending in horror.
Yeah, right.
I've never liked those.
Yeah, no. Yeah, not necessarily like literally, not like her getting in this truck means that this guy is going to then be
Right,
picked up by
right.
the family, or that Sally will become the like new mommy of this family. Like that's not what it is.
It's a
but
gesture.
Yeah.
There's this like
some sort of madness or violence or terror will infect the guy who picks her up.
there's this broken logic. I'm trying to find the perfect phrase for this idea. I think a good way to introduce it is the set decoration of Leatherface's house.
Oh my god, it's so cool.
So we talked about this last week, I think, with the Blair Witch episode.
Oh, yeah.
And also in the context of True Detective. And it has never been done better than it is here. The
Yeah.
bone decorations, the sculptures made of twigs, everywhere inside the house, there are bones hanging from strings, tied together, piled up, all sorts of weird arrangements, covered in feathers.
Right.
It's the cheapest part of a movie production. It's incredibly simple set decoration versus building all sorts of basements and grimy dungeons and pits
Right.
full of needles and all sorts of stuff. But I don't think a horror movie's ever done better than this movie does with its set decoration.
It is really impressive.
Because it gives you something to chew on and think about, but it doesn't fully make sense.
I was going to say, it's not explained. You're like, why on earth are there sculptures of random bones? Why are there feathers everywhere? Why is this chair made of
Right.
human arm bones?
Like, the more you think about it, there is a logic, but it's not our logic. That's that broken logic I'm trying to play with. It's not, it doesn't fully make sense, but it's close enough to making sense to unnerve you. It's that suggestion, that power of suggestion. The
Yeah.
couch is fully lined with bones. There are arms tied to the arms of Sally's chair at dinner. It's not logical. It's not illogical. It's whatever their logic is.
Right. Even with Leatherface's like costume changes, he has a different mask for when he's killing the guys versus
Making dinner.
versus having dinner. Right.
Right.
And his outfit is different. His hair is different. And you don't really understand it. You're like, why does he have makeup on this mask for dinner? But there's some reason.
Right.
Like it's not just random.
He's wearing an apron, so maybe you think he's playing the mother role.
Yeah, because he's got makeup on. Yeah, but
And it's just a bunch of like it doesn't fully make sense. There's
Right,
this
no.
palpable departure and break from logic.
Right.
But you can still see these little patterns and rules. It's ordered, it's methodical,
Right.
violent, mysterious. I mean, it's genuinely insane.
yeah,
And it's never talked about. But the imagery is so striking.
yeah.
The sets are so like pointedly and well decorated to give you all those little pinpricks to pay attention to.
Yeah.
It's so much more interesting than that classic, the notebooks are full of scratchy little handwriting. He'd planned, look at all these books
The
he
master
wrote in.
plan. Yeah.
Who cares about that? Show me some twigs.
Right.
Make me scared of twigs.
Sure. And even the barbecue thing is never explained because you've got the gas station that sells the barbecue, which is like run by the father of this family,
Right.
the guy with the teeth. And when Sally runs there
Yeah.
after running away from Leatherface, not knowing that this guy is part of the family, she looks like when he's going to get his truck, like to presumably help her, but kidnap her, she's looking over at the meat that's like roasting at the station. And you can see her thinking about it. She's like, is that human meat?
Right.
Like you see her thinking about it and she starts to get real creeped out. And I think it very well could be human meat that they're cooking based on, you know, what we've seen. But also it might just be a normal barbecue place that's like that's how the guy makes money.
Right. Right.
And like, you know, so he can support himself doing all his other stuff. So, but you never know. And you're just left to wonder. And, you know, I just love that theme of like meat and all that's running through the movie. Because, you know, at the beginning, they're talking about when they're in the van, they're talking about slaughterhouses because they drive past one and they talk about how inhumane it used to be. And now they're talking about, the bolt guns, but also actually doesn't fully kill them. And they're talking about meat slaughter. And
10 minutes later, they buy some barbecue.
Right.
Like it has that fallible humanity to it of, in the car, hypothetically, I've got principles, but then I got hungry.
Right.
Which is so much more interesting and human and real. Like we talked
Right.
about the characters being normal. That's so much more normal than them looking at the camera and like
Right.
doing a PETA ad at us.
Right. And then it makes what happens to them all so much worse because obviously like the way that they're killed, the Pam being put on the meat hook, them being stuck in the freezer.
Right.
And one of my other favorite shots is at the end in the dinner scene, all those close-up shots on Sally, the really, really close-up shots of her eyes. She's got these like really big expressive eyes with these really long eyelashes. All I could think about the first time I saw this and the second part was cows.
Yes.
And their big wide eyes. And you've seen, I mean, most people have seen images or shots of cattle at slaughterhouses when they are aware of something bad is happening. Right. And you can see that fear in their eyes. That's so much what I see with Sally.
And a lot of animals scream in that situation.
They do.
And of all the like final girls in classic horror, I think Sally might be the most genuinely afraid.
Yeah.
Because like you said, she's got that wide-eyed horror. It's real frenzied adrenaline, like banshee screaming.
Full adrenaline, yeah.
And with that dinner scene, that terror and that senseless just fear is sustained for so long.
I know,
It's such exhausting, impressive work. Like, I don't have much else to say about her character, but what she does in the last 20 minutes here when things fully go off the rails.
I mean, it's literally like 15, 20 minutes of her screaming.
Right.
Like, and I've seen that be done really poorly. I've seen actresses who aren't that strong who are just screaming and crying hysterically in a movie, but it's so unbelievable and it's so overdone and theatrical that it's just funny. But she's doing such a convincing, distressing performance of that.
And there's something distressed to basically every aspect of this movie. You can tell it was shot on film. It wouldn't work on a perfect 4K digital, which is basically the complaint about all the other movies in the franchise. The modern aspect, I think, hurts it every single time. The 2022 one was, or was it last year?
It's 2021.
That one was good, but nothing's ever, I mean, the closest thing to ever capturing the vibe of this original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is Ty West doing X and Pearl.
Yeah.
Or True Detective.
Right. We talked about that graininess necessity when we did our Saw episode. Yeah.
But like it's something in the look and the feel, and we talked about color when we were watching it. Every single shot of this movie is so burned out, so oversaturated. It feels so precisely tuned, but also recognizable.
Yeah.
To the point that I've never really seen another horror movie look like this one does.
Yeah.
Those other kind of touchstones I just referenced, they capture the feel or the themes or the ideas, but that look I've never really seen.
Yeah, and it's so atmospheric. I mean, you can feel the heat so well, especially because they are genuinely filming in a heat wave. A lot of times in movies, it's like, oh, we filmed this in winter, but we're pretending it's summer or whatever. And it was a pretty chilly night, and it was cold in that cabin. We didn't have the heat on because Cam overheats, so we just do blankets and stuff instead. But I was like, I like felt physically cold because it was a cold night. We're on this like leather couch, but I could feel the heat very palpably, like just the colors and you can see the way the air ripples with the light and the sweat and just but like it's just such an overheated exhausting
yellow,
movie.
Beige, kind of burned out old paper. Like every shot is simultaneously too light and too dark.
Yeah.
There's that warmth in the color palette and intensity in the contrast in the exposure.
Yes.
Where it almost has the effect of when you're squinting.
Right, yeah, or when it's so bright and then you look away and everything's too black because your pupils have shrunk so much. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when you sustain that for an hour and a half, I mean, like it happens when you're actually out there in like nowhere, Texas, which is what this movie truly feels like.
Yes.
We've both been to nowhere, Texas. This is what it feels like.
Yes.
It's when your eyes adjust, like even in the nighttime shots, it feels the same way. You've got those jet black shadows and the blazing lights from the house.
Yeah, or the car.
It's contrast and alienation and heat and this kind of disgruntled feeling.
And the still air. Yeah.
But the fact that the nighttime shots feel like that, like they almost feel exactly the same as the daytime shots. Mm-hmm. When you don't have as palpable heat, you don't have the blazing sun, but you still feel that burn.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's an incredible work of art that it can capture that feeling at 2 a.m.
Yeah. Totally.
And there is this X factor that you can't really talk out and describe. Mm-hmm. But as a horror movie, I consider this obviously a classic horror movie. But maybe the question to you is, do you think this is a slasher?
Well, how does one define a slasher? I mean, I think technically, yes, because it is about a group of people, especially young people, who are being killed off one by one by a guy with a weapon, and there's a final girl at the end. Like, those are your key ingredients for a slasher, and you don't need all of those, and sometimes you have more ingredients. But, I mean, yes. But like I was saying before, like when I think of a slasher, this is not what I think of. Like, this is not a good example of a slasher, I think, because of its tone. Not because it's, like, obviously it's an amazing movie, is what we're saying. But I don't think it's the right way to think about and define a slasher. Just because it's so serious. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a hilarious concept, right? Like... These teenagers go to this house that's abandoned and they're kidnapped and killed by a man with a chainsaw wearing a human face as a mask. Like, right. It's hilariously absurd and gross, but it ends up being so serious and grim and devastating that it doesn't feel like a fun slasher the way that even Halloween is fun, or obviously Friday the 13th or any of those. So it doesn't feel like that. No. Because
the thing that I was trying to think of, trying to identify that subgenre in one word, I think it's the chase element.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because you find out about the bad guy pretty early, especially if it's a sequel. He's kind of built in from the beginning.
Yeah.
And then it's the chase and the one by one.
How do they get picked off? Yeah.
But in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there's really only a chase for Sally as the final girl. Mm-hmm. Like, the rest of the movie is travel, arrival at the house, exploration, and then it's not chases.
Yeah, they're lured in.
Yeah, but it's not chases. It's not a cat and mouse thing. They're executed. Yeah. One by one. Like, it's astonishingly simple and clean from a narrative perspective, but also for the kills.
Yeah.
Like, we intro the characters and then knock them all down like bowling pins.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There are no twists. There are no pep rally speeches. It's incredibly fast. Mm-hmm. Like, when they're exploring the house, when they walk into Leatherface's house, they don't catch a cool picture of some cool exposition and see some freaky details and then go tell the group, and then one of them wants to leave, one of them wants to stay there. Maybe we should split up. No, we should say, we don't do that.
No, there's none of that. We don't waste any time.
Someone goes into the house, dies. Yeah. Someone goes into the house to look for that friend, dead. Someone goes into the woods, dead. Like, the movie, it knocks most of the cast down really quick.
It does. Mm-hmm.
And then it only slows down at the dinner scene where Sally pleads for her life and they mock her.
Yeah.
And that moment of, like, rejecting the formula that they've developed so far, the fact that they hold that moment and escalate that tension, where they have been sprinting, they grind the narrative to a stop and just play with their food. Like, she knows she's going to die. Mm-hmm. And that's when they play with the formula, too, because Sally escapes. She runs back into the house. Leatherface tries to carve up the door, and she runs back out again. Yep. That's the first time we've seen someone leave a scary house that they've entered.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's when you start to riff on that formula. But because it's delayed, because you only riff on it once, it feels fresh and liberated. Versus every other, what I would call slasher horror movie, feels weighed down by the history of the genre, where every single kill, you're searching for a new angle that hasn't been done yet, which makes all of the kills these, like, annoying technicality pretzels.
Right.
And this movie is refreshing because, yes, it has the advantage of happening 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So there are fewer movies to compare it to. But it's also the approach to the genre. And very much I would compare that to X. X feels much more like this movie, where it's just a series of cool kills with some cool background stuff and iconography.
Yeah.
But this movie's not ironic. It's not lazy. It doesn't over-explain. And that makes it a timeless classic because it's almost a purely original work of art. Yeah. It's not really in dialogue with anything else. It's not subverting, outsmarting, puzzle boxing the genre. It's linear, it's blunt, it's potent. And I can't think of many other horror movies that follow those rules.
Yeah.
But like on paper, a really good sequel to a classic slasher franchise would just do this. You introduce a couple people, they get to the place, and within 20 minutes, you are just executing them in order.
Yeah.
Like versus wrestling with, well, how is Paul Rudd related to Michael Myers?
I mean, I think
what does the tattoo cult mean?
Yeah, I think the second Friday the 13th is a lot like that.
That's a good point.
It just jumps right in. It's like, okay, we all know who Jason Voorhees is. Okay, they're at Camp Crystal. Like, oh, they're all going to die. Like, it's pretty, there's like hardly any time wasted on who these characters are because that's not the point.
There's no fat on that movie.
Yeah, and that, again, tonally, those movies are very different from this, but it's still following that same kind of formula that you're saying could make it very successful.
But for like a modern update to a classic horror franchise, I would like to see this approach. We've got a cool villain. We're going to make him look cool. We're going to nail the mask and the look and the way we shoot him and the light and the color and the sound. And then you just kill the new characters. And you wrap it up in under 90 minutes. They're dead. It's violent. It's exciting. And then it's just easy listening.
Yeah.
It's done in 85 minutes. We'll see you in 2 years with the next one.
Well, here's a question. We did a whole episode about the Terrifier franchise and Art the Clown and what that means. This sequel, Terrifier 2, is 2.5 hours and is incredibly focused on character and story. And we loved it. It's an incredible movie, but it's not the type of slasher sequel you're talking about.
But Terrifier 1 is.
Yeah, it is.
And I think there's that demonstration of like I think to be like, have you heard the phrase, you can break the rules if you know them?
Sure.
For writing and for art.
Yeah.
Damien Leone making Terrifier 1, after making this short film, basically in All Hallows Eve with the clown, then making the classic 85-minute, here's the freaky guy slasher movie. He made that.
He did that.
He didn't need to make another one, because most of these other franchises we're talking about, it's another filmmaker who comes in and does their own thing.
Well, I want to try my hand at Texas Chainsaw. Right.
And they do their 90-minute version.
Yeah.
But Leone nailed that one. And then he riffed and tried something else.
Yes.
I think that's fine when it comes from the original filmmaker.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But I mean, as like Blumhouse is going to make more Halloween movies now that they're done with that new trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
I would like the next one to just be 85 minutes of really cool kills and no explanations.
Yeah, nothing about Laurie's stupid background and familial.
I
don't want Laurie. Like, we're just here for Michael.
Right. Yeah, you don't have to torture the lore. You don't have to justify anything. Just go in.
Yeah.
Because the thing that strikes me from this movie, it's all the atmosphere, it's the feeling, it's the location. But it's also just the kills being really good.
Yeah. I mean, they're simple, but they're incredible.
And if you look at the new Halloween trilogy, none of my problems are with the kills.
Yeah, no. Like, Halloween Kills, the second in that trilogy, is the worst of those. But at the very least, the kills in that are great.
So imagine if you'd given them that, like, smaller scope to play with.
I know, people are just, you don't, like, a slasher can just be that. It doesn't have to, like, have all this other stuff tacked onto it. Sometimes it can, like Terrifier 2, and it can be incredibly successful. But it doesn't have to do that. I think
they don't all have to do that.
I think people I think current filmmakers feel such pressure to, like, go beyond and, like, make this big, like, philosophical statement with like, it can just be a good, entertaining, well-made movie. It doesn't have to be a commentary on something.
Elevated horror.
Right.
You don't have to excuse the genre.
Right.
And I think that's why Terrifier is so good. Even though 2 was playing in such a huge sandbox, there was such a joy and palpable love of the genre.
Well, that's the thing, is that Terrifier 2 was not trying to rise above the slasher or elevate the slasher. No. It was appreciating and reveling in what a slasher is and doing it really, really well and including really, really good story.
It was just a pig rolling in the mud, and this is the same thing.
It wasn't embarrassed to be what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's no pretension in this movie.
I feel like the Halloween trilogy, especially Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, were so embarrassed by what they are and were trying so hard to be above that, and it just made it so messy and clunky.
I think the lore difficulties are kind of what I struggled with.
Yeah, I mean that
trilogy.
That also doesn't help, but
it just felt like there was so much happening.
Yes.
Because when it did slow down or speed up or whatever the right term is, I thought those were quite strong.
Yes, right.
But there was just so much else there.
Yeah.
So we haven't really talked about Leatherface a bit in comparison to Michael Myers. But let's talk about the most important part of Leatherface.
Okay.
The MVP murder weapon in this movie. The thing that is so legendary, the thing I think about whenever I've pictured this movie since the first time I saw it. It's not the chainsaw.
No.
That one's like a matador flag that you wave around and gets everyone's attention.
Yeah.
It's the mallet.
It's absolutely the mallet, because it's the first weapon that's used.
So
I mean, unless you count the knife from the hitchhiker, but
like we were just talking about, a very important part of a horror movie, especially a slasher, is having cool kills.
Yep.
The mallet is the heaviest murder weapon I've ever seen on screen.
Oh my God.
In any genre that deals with crime or whatever else. There's no big thud. There's no big, embarrassing sound effect. We were watching something a couple weeks ago, and there were all these, over-the-top sound effects for punching that were very silly.
It was season 1 of The Sopranos.
Yeah, and it totally pulled you out of that, in the pilot. It pulled you out of that scene.
It was not good stage fighting, yeah.
But the power of the mallet in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's not in a big thud or a sound effect. No. It's how hard the targets drop.
I was going to say, it's how hard he falls. It's just boom.
And we see a couple people nailed by it. And it's not... It's just this ragdoll.
Yeah.
They don't even go dead. They just start flopping and fritzing around.
Because it's not like, oh, this guy is crazy and he stuck a knife through their eyeball.
Right.
It's just boom.
Right.
He's just powerful and just no problem can kill you.
And it almost catches that inevitability of Michael Myers that we talked about, where the mallet looks hard to lift. It takes a few seconds. It's heavy and slow. But then when it connects, it falls heavy.
Yeah.
And it just flattens its victims. The weight and impact of that thing, especially the first time you see it, is just profound.
Yeah.
The best comparison is... I've read a lot of comics, and I've seen a bunch of Marvel movies. This mallet is what I want Thor's hammer to feel like.
And it never is that.
No, it never, ever is. And I understand that Disney is not going to bludgeon people with a hammer.
Come on, Disney.
But that's what it should feel like.
Yeah.
Right? The way he nukes the boyfriend in that first kill.
It's so good.
And then slams the door shut.
I know.
As far as 3-second sequences in horror, that's the number one.
I know, and it's also the quick zoom on his face because you haven't seen him at all the whole movie.
Right.
All this, I mean, you at this point everybody knows what Leatherface looks like or what they expect him to look like, but he just pops out of nowhere in this weird house, and it's a quick zoom, and then you're at the same second that you are like, oh no, our character who's about to die is also thinking, oh no, and it's just boom, drop, move the body, slam the door. The whole movie changes.
Right. He's just a good, simple, great, huge, freaky villain. And I think that's why, we haven't talked about it on the show, but Rob Zombie's Halloween is one of my favorite movies, horror movies of all time. I think it's incredible.
Yeah, it's fun.
But that Michael Myers is a huge, scary, freaky, violent dude.
He's very scary.
And it captures a bit of that charm, for lack of a better word, of this Leatherface, of just that huge slasher villain that you want.
That Michael Myers is a mix between original Michael and Leatherface, I think.
Totally.
Just in his size and the way he moves, and
which fits Rob Zombie's aesthetic.
Yes.
But there's another villain in this movie who is much harder to talk about, and I think there's less to play with, but the little pinpricks you get are fascinating, and that's Grandpa.
Grandpa
So-
is something else.
My question to you, this is why I paused the movie and grabbed my phone when we were watching it.
Oh, okay.
Is Grandpa a vampire?
I know. I was going to say earlier when we were talking about the ambiguity of the lore of this family, I was like, genuinely, I can't tell if Grandpa's dead or not.
So I think, in the way that all vampires are kind of dead, bloodless, too old,
Well, yeah, like,
no complexion,
yep,
he gets fed blood,
yep,
and they refer to him as the best killer there ever was.
yeah,
He's impossibly old. And in that first scene with the hitchhiker, the palpably smart and perceptive Franklin calls the hitchhiker a Dracula multiple times.
he does. That's right.
And they're all part of the same family.
And they're going to this big house with these weird people. Interesting.
That they've had forever. I don't think the sausage business is doing that well, that they're barbecuing their way into a mansion.
That's right. Interesting. So there's a Dracula thing. Well, that's very fun. And maybe the idea that the rest of the family members are sort of like Dracula's wives, like they've been sort of converted. So you've got Grandpa as the Dracula, and then maybe hitchhiker guy, the gas station guy, could have been sort of, it's not a direct correlation, like analogy, but it's interesting.
There's also this constant reference to dead animals and meat and insane devotees of Grandpa.
Yes.
So everyone in the family is a Renfield too.
Yeah. Well, and the infection thing that you talked about earlier, the infection of the family.
Yeah.
Is it in Nosferatu that instead of because we talked about Nosferatu over the summer, instead of it being like Dracula like goes around and gets all these wives, it's what is it? People start turning into vampires, and it's thought of to be a virus, like a disease that's spreading. That's what it is. And so again, it's like this infection that's spreading.
Right.
So that's an interesting correlation.
Yeah, I hadn't caught the Renfield thing, but that's the best way to understand the hitchhiker's twitchy mannerisms.
Yeah.
Is Renfield playing with the flies.
Very,
Strapped
very
down,
cool.
freaking out at the orderlies.
Wow. Very neat. I like that a lot.
This last thing is, this last point I have here is sort of a return to what we talked about with the scary twigs. That idea of broken logic. And I don't know about this, so I just want to pitch this to you and see what you think. Sally is not a great sister.
No.
She openly resents Franklin, and specifically his mobility challenges.
Yes.
Because he's in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
She treats him like a burden,
Yeah.
pretty openly. She lets her friends get away with mocking him in front of her. She won't slow down when she's walking off into the woods when they know their friends are being killed.
Yeah.
She won't slow down for him.
And even before, she leaves him downstairs when they go up into the other house, and she's upstairs laughing with her friends, and he's just down there.
She's a bad sister.
Yeah.
And at the end of the movie, Sally gets kidnapped by a bad family who treat each other terribly. But they all venerate Grandpa
In the wheelchair.
and cater to his needs eagerly, almost happily.
Yeah, going to get him from
Right.
upstairs, carrying him down.
They're giddy about Grandpa. So there's a strange sense that I didn't catch the first time I saw the movie. I was paying attention to the teeth. There's this strange sense of completing the circle when the finale of this movie restages the film's opening. Instead of Franklin being cut by the hitchhiker and growing weaker, Sally's cut and her blood is fed to Grandpa, making him stronger, presumably.
Yeah.
Franklin dies young and hated and resented.
Yeah.
Grandpa lives forever and is beloved. And just like the decorations and the sculptures, there's a twisted sort of symmetry to this echo. And like you said, visually, the comparison is stronger because they're both in wheelchairs. But it almost feels like restitution. Like she's paying back that blood debt.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. I like that a lot.
I don't like it's so there's such a striking visual connection and it does not line up perfectly.
No.
But the changes are so perfectly mirrored in these characters. I don't know what it means, but no one knows what it means.
Right.
It's been 45 years and only Ty West has been able to figure out anything about this family dynamic. That's why Pearl is so good. Go check out our Substack for the episode about Pearl when we talk about understanding Grandpa in the dinner scene, because that movie is, if anything, a meditation on that scene.
Yeah.
But I love that idea with the wheelchair comparison.
Oh, that's so cool. I hadn't thought about that at all. I know I never have known what to think about Grandpa other than he just terrifies me. But understanding him as this Dracula figure or as this flip side of Franklin is really fascinating.
Yeah, he's like He's everything Franklin isn't.
Yeah.
But he's also a vampire.
That's pretty cool. I think I heard that, the production on that movie was
fun.
Absolutely wild. Totally could never happen now. But
it barely happened then.
Yeah. But one detail I think I heard was that Sally, they actually cut her finger, and Grandpa unknowingly actually like sucked her blood out of her finger. It was only later that he was like, oh, that actually happened. But terrible shit like that happened in the whole production. It was actually really terrible, but
quite a movie we got out of it.
What a great sacrifice that they made for the good of art. But yeah.
So yeah, that's the Texas chain space Saw Massacre.
If you haven't seen it and you listen to this, what are you doing? But go watch it or rewatch it if it's been a minute.
And you can watch it for free on Tubi right now.
Tubi's been the greatest discovery.
TUBI. You don't need to make an account. You don't need to do shit. You search Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You click on it, and it is playing before you've even finished loading the page.
There are a few ad breaks, but they're very quick. I mean, it's like the equivalent of the ad breaks you get when watching a long YouTube video.
Yeah, it's awesome. Tubi's great.
It's great. What are we doing?
And the most of the Terrifier movies are
on there too. Not Terrifier 2 because that's still in theaters.
Well, now it's on digital.
Oh, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, that's great. Anyway.
And it cracked 10 million. Yeehaw.
Yes. I'm so happy about that. All right, cool. Well, thanks for joining us for the continuation of the spooky season.
And this little kind of downplayed series we're doing of the art that really, really, really matters to us.
Yeah.
These are the most...
That's what our Tuesdays are now.
These
we
are
did
biggest,
House of the Dragon. That was fun. But now our Tuesdays are back to just being art that we really care about.
And these are the most daunting, headachy episodes for me.
Really?
Because they're the most important. So yeah, this was fun.
We got some other fun plans. I won't say, but we got some fun plans for the rest.
Yeah, we do. We're booked out
of this year.
We're booked out through January.
We are fully, thinking.
And it's
ahead.
all fun stuff.
Yeah. If you have thoughts about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or you've also been to the Texas Chainsaw House, send us an email at secondbreakfastpod@gmail.com, or you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, and Substack at secondbreakfastpod. We, like Cam said, we have exclusive episodes on our Substack, which you can subscribe to for free or $5 a month. Then you will get different things depending on what you sign up for. We also...
What have we covered for the exclusive ones? Pearl,
Barbarian. What's the...
Top Gun Maverick.
And also there's more coming. Oh, also when we were doing House of the Dragon, our paid subscribers got our curated memes. Mm-hmm. All the best memes for Hot D. But more exclusive things coming there. So... yeah. Anyway.
And if you like this one, go check out Blair Witch because that's a really fun horror chat that we did last week.
Yeah, that was last week. We did a whole horror series over the summer called Summerween.
Yes, we did.
Where we did 10 weeks of horror movies.
A couple of those really messed us up too. Sinister and Funny Games are rough.
I will be talking about what Funny Games did to me in an exclusive Substack post, which is coming to an inbox near you very soon. So
yeah, that one sounds really fun.
Cool. All right, cool.
We'll be back on Friday with our next Witcher discussion. It'll be no?
Nope. It'll be an ideas one, just a discussion. Yeah. Right. We're doing The Witcher every other Friday.
No.
Yes.
No.
Cameron. Today is Tuesday. Right. This is for next Tuesday.
Well, we were back last Friday with a Witcher discussion. Of course,
which we haven't recorded yet.
Right. It gets topsy-turvy playing in 2 shows a week.
It certainly does. All right. Well, have a good rest of your week. Stay safe. Don't pick up hitchhikers.
Nope. And remember your house bricks.
That is correct. Always have a house brick. Okay, bye.
Bye.